Hi, my name is Christine Betker, and I'm going to continue this recording. Um, However, I'm going to try and move a little bit quicker through this one than I did the other one. So um, I did want to add the curriculum or I'm sorry, the um, Common Core Standards. I really kind of went back and reflected on that again, and it really is the language arts Common Core Standards based for each grade level. Um, it relates to several of them. So, and I also wanted to add to my previous video the part on sequencing the lessons, and I really kind of just used the strategy of uh, gaining the attention of the students, the research strategy of gaining the attention of the students, relating it to their prior knowledge, um, and giving them tools to, such as the graphic organizer, to really, in the end, write their essay. I thought that it worked really well, and the students really grasped that well. And then also the one-on-one, the direct instruction, along with the one-on-one or small group, and then the one-on-one time I was able to kind of work within the groups when I was able to transition through the classroom from group to group. So that I wanted to add to the first video. So I just want to make sure I covered everything. And again, I'm going to try and move a little bit quicker through the rest of this um, lesson planning consideration. So I believe I was at number 11, and um, this was how I would connect new learning from this learning segment to prior learning and or experience. And so really, I think that in a lot of my examples throughout the entire 3 lessons, I was using prior knowledge. I was trying to relate to the students. I had certain ways or little mini lessons where I could kind of um, uh, get understanding or get to know them and what they their likes or preferences or dislikes were. So and then I could also kind of relate it to their parents and how they rewarded them or persuaded them or things that work too. So just relating it to things they could relate to as children. Number 12, describe academic or behavioral self-directed strategy. And I really that I taught the students, and it kind of was more related to the behavior self-directed strategy, and it was really and I was kind of going back to the materials from the course, and in chapter 11 in Cooks and Tankersley was the pre-corrects, and I did that kind of with one or two of the students, the EBD student, throughout the entire lesson. And I did this in a way that I kind of addressed the entire class, and his rules weren't any different than the class. And so I would address the class first, and then I tried to kind of do a check-in and check-out with him before each day. And asked him kind of after I had addressed the class, I had kind of went over to him and in a whisper, non-distracting way, kind of ask him to either repeat them to me, the expectations for his behavior in this class, and if he had any questions about it, and then I would kind of reward or praise him for the previous day's good behavior, or give him a reminder, pre-correct him of something that maybe didn't go so well. For just a reminder for the desired behaviors. In an attempt to try and stop it before it started for the current lesson. So and then also throughout the lesson there were several. I think in a couple of my video clips of teaching, you'll see in one for sure, I believe, where he did kind of have a um, tough time in small group, and it was kind of interesting to me because that was something I read in his IEP, that he enjoyed that kind of work or working with peers. But for whatever reason that day, he was just not acting appropriately. So I did have to prompt him to take a look at his behavior, remind him of the steps for being appropriate in class, or and respectful. So that's that. Um, Progress monitoring and data. So how did I plan to monitor their progress during this lesson? I did it several ways through observation, the worksheets. I did have a specific data sheet I was kind of keeping throughout the entire 3 lessons from beginning to start, that I would use or pull out mainly during when they were doing independent group work. It had a notes section, and then just kind of kept track of each student and how they grasped the content. And then through their written work, their essays, and then I also assigned the EBD student, the one with the writing goal. Assigned him kind of the recorder role, and I found out right away when I did that, one of the first lessons, that he kind of became proud and he kind of took it on and was kind of the leader in the group. So it my plan kind of worked well. Um, how I would display the progress mining data for this learner segment is I have a tool that I used for another student in my first year, where I would kind of take the work samples and get so many out of so many trials for, whether it was a 3 sentences from her spelling test, and kind of come up with a percentage or a ratio of how many times she used a correct capitalization, punctuation, and subject verb agreement. And I use that same tool. Um, and The next area here is supports and differentiation. Um, so I'm going to kind of talk about this um, kind of in general for all 3 lessons, how the student's strengths, interests, and preferences. Like I said, I found that when you put the proper supports in for this student, he did very well. I gave him attention when it was deserved, and I ignored kind of the unnecessary stuff, and that seemed to work for these 4 lessons that I did. So um, again, small group, I kind of broke off more into small groups or partner work, because minus the exception of the one day in the video, you'll see he did do fairly well in the groups. And then also, I thought that, making a game of most of these lessons, somewhat, where they would earn a reward, was beneficial for this student as well. So that was kind of a strength or interest for him. Um, and so, let's see, what else do I got here? Um, Another interest, he liked to participate. He really did. Sometimes it was inappropriate, but when that happened, I tried to pre-correct him, because I could kind of tell from his body language as I got to know him. He would do, actually, what I noticed if through observation was he would look at the other student that was kind of the same student he was always um, would look at before he was about to make a inappropriate comment. So I would kind of go near his desk and kind of put my hand on his desk. So um, when I asked, you'll see in the lessons, I think in one of them where I asked, there was an advertisement for American Cancer Society, and I asked the students to kind of relate to, ask them if any of them had anybody in their family that had cancer, and he always came up with an example he could relate to, and I made sure to call on him, along with, it was fair, called on everybody else. Um, and so I think that's kind of the supports and differentiation. Um, Describe the supports that you had planned for this lesson. So I'm going to kind of consider them all together as well. I think I considered from the start the um, research-based cooperative learning groups. And so I kind of found that related to his IEP and some of the things I was able to read, that he did well with that. In lesson 1, um, I connected with him along with the other students. I explained what I was going to do, so I think I made them part of kind of the plan. I, just kind of related to them, saying I'm learning how to do my job better. And I, really would appreciate it if you guys would participate. You're going to get a lot from this. And I'm kind of like you. I'm learning just like you. So I think I kind of that's how I built kind of the rapport with the students. So, and making them part of it. So, um, and I also knew that I knew prior to these 3 lessons in my organizing strategy, I knew that I needed to kind of address him quietly. So that seemed to work well in that one. And when I got to know him, and then I would monitor him closely. I gave him quite a bit of feedback, and more so when he was writing. I tried to make my way around the room, but I tried to kind of give him more prompts and feedback. So, accommodations and modifications and assistive technology that I planned for. And basically in all the lessons, I broke for this particular student. If I look back at kind of my teaching in the small group lessons we did, or the mini lessons, or the small group and the whole group instruction, I broke his tasks and assignments into smaller sections, um, and that seemed to help for him. Um, I I extended time was something I tried to do, which was somewhat, considering the setting, it was somewhat difficult to do. But I would positively reinforce him for when he was on task and had appropriate behavior. And then something that I thought about after was kind of a handheld spelling device, or maybe even using an iPad for his paragraph. Um, I thought would be helpful. Um, how would I plan to differentiate for learner variance during the learning segment? For all 3 of them again, I would do this by reaching out to the individual small groups, analyze the learning environment, meeting with the small groups to reteach or to extend the thinking using a different rubric for different learning abilities. I could have him work alone or in a smaller group. Um, how would I engage the students? I considered, we'll talk about all lessons again. So I I wanted to engage them by making it fun, by having a reward for the winners, working together with their classmates. I thought that was fun. Um, and tried to relate it to stuff that they would like. For example, candy is one of my lessons, so for persuasion. And then feedback, how did I provide feedback for all 3 lessons? I think I gave opportunities for questions or I provided relevant examples they could relate to. I allowed them to ask questions, and the persuasion maps, the worksheets, group work, was really good time where I could connect with them. And then I could do this feedback through their essay and their presentations. Maintenance and generalization. So how I promoted maintenance of the new skill is before each lesson, we always reviewed kind of the strategies for persuasion. We did it kind of in different ways. Continued to give examples. They were given a homework assignment. Persuasion is all around us. I asked them to go home, get a newspaper, get a magazine, look at a billboard on the way home, and then bring back their ideas. And then how to use this skill with other content. So, if we're persuading in science or we're writing a persuasion speech in any class. Describe how you would promote generalization. So this would be applying this skill to persuasive writing through their presentations and writing, and apply to other academic content. So apply it across multiple settings. So, and then lastly, learning theory and research-based practices. Describe learning theory that has informed your planning decision. It was direct instruction and collaborative learning, conceptual framework, where the students were able to absorb and process and retain during the lesson. I was able to observe that. And then lastly, I only got 1 minute. Research-based practices. Begin each lesson with a short review before I presented new material. Ask many questions and try to reach all students. Individualize instruction, ongoing. Modify as you go. Provide models. Guided student practice. Check for student understanding. Provide scaffolds for difficult tasks, require and monitor independent practice.